books. Just books. Books. My sister got me this magnet last year, and I think it says it all. This is me. Books, books, books. Hi, welcome to Kick-Ass Switch, putting the K in magic. I'm Joanna DeVoe, and you're watching a nerdy book nerd post in which I shall talk about books. This is the final video for March 2017. The theme here in March has been resistance, so I wanted to do a book nerd post on that theme, recommend one awesome book that you could pick up that would continue on the inspiration to keep working through resistance. The thing is, there are two books. I could not pick one or the other that I think are just fabulous for anybody who is experiencing any kind of resistance, especially creatively. I feel like these two books should be in everybody's library. I only have time to do one book nerd post this month, and you can find a link to that down below. But before I share what these two books are, I want to put this in context so that those of you who are not writers or don't consider yourself artists, I don't want you to tune out. So I didn't have to drag it out because I already had it out with me. The Witch in Every Woman. I did a book nerd post on this a long time ago. Because this is one of my all-time favorite witchy books. I love Laurie Cabot. I love this book. If you're a fan of Women Who Run with the Wolves, I did 4 book nerd posts on that book. I did a whole series because it's so dense that I was just I cannot do this in one post. So I dedicated an entire month to talking about Women Who Run with the Wolves. If you loved that book, and you liked the idea of stories and mythologies that are rich with symbolism and working with archetypes, this book you also need. I feel like it's an awesome continuation of that Women Who Run with the Wolves journey. Or if you find Women Who Run with the Wolves to be too dense and too overwhelming, this is a good one to read instead. It talks about the witch archetype specifically and the sovereign goddess. And it's the only book that I own in which I'm able to connect with ancient myths. She talks about Celtic goddesses in this book and shares their mythology in a way that totally clicks with me. And that's partly why I love it. It's partly why I have it out on my bed, because I think I'll talk about this in the next mega vlog, but I recently had this strange kind of mystical Caradwyn experience. So I started obsessing on Caradwyn's cauldron of inspiration and transformation, and I remembered there was a section in this book on her. It's very hard to find information on these ancient goddesses sometimes, at least information that resonates. I think it's very personal. But the reason I bring this up is because of this chapter, Inspiring the Cauldron. I wanted to read a little piece of this to you to emphasize, before I talk about these other two books, why working through resistance is important for every creative person, and that you are a creative person. If you are a human being, you are creative by nature. If you are a magical being, if you call yourself a witch or a pagan or you're super new agey, you're extraordinarily creative, because what is magic but creating change in conformity with one's will? We're trying to shape our lives creatively, to at least co-create our lives in conformity with our will, and that requires so much creativity. So resistance and creativity tend to go hand in hand, and it often shows up as procrastination, kind of any form of self self-sabotage anytime you want to make a big change. So I was just trying to emphasize that this is not a post for writers or people who call themselves artists. It's for everyone. So I just wanted to quickly read what Lori Cabot has to say about nurturing your creativity. And this is a book for women, obviously, The Witch in Every Woman, although I think it's fabulous for anyone. But when she says woman here, keep in mind, I'm saying women and men. So creativity's meaning is much more expansive than mere success with canvas or clay. A woman's creative essence can find expression anywhere, at any time, in any milieu. From the laundry room to the boardroom. In addition to the artistic, the creative experience should include one's talent for preparing a meal, mending a sock, mothering a child, caring for an animal, brokering a deal, running a business, making people laugh, telling a story, basically living your life. And why stop there? There are no limits to creativity's wanderings. I love that she capitalizes creativity because so does another author that I'm going to mention. But another thing that she says that I love is a witch's creative skills are available to her not only on an intellectual but a mystical level as well. So that's just to put this in context. If you call yourself a witch, if you're a magical person, you are creative. Therefore, these two books that I'm going to recommend to you, they apply. So these are the two books that I think, one's backward. The War of Art by Steven Pressfield, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I am not reinventing the wheel by recommending these books. They are very, very famous. Oprah Winfrey has interviewed both of these people. But I'm not trying to just recommend these odd, obscure books to you so I can look hip and cool. I'm trying to actually provide tools that can help you create the kick-ass life of your dreams, and I think these two books are it. I'm tempted to say it's sort of a masculine, feminine take on the same idea. The subtitle for Elizabeth Gilbert's book is Creative Living Beyond Fear. And then Steven Pressfield's subtitle of The War of Art is Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles. On the surface, this is a more masculine book. Its focus is the war of art, right? And then this you might think of as a more feminine book. Creative Living Beyond Fear. And they're each written by a man and a woman. But I will say that both of these authors are extremely spiritual. There's a lot of spirituality embedded in both of these books. A lot of story, a lot of humor. And they both, I think Elizabeth Gilbert is very much in touch with her inner masculine in that she has a very no-nonsense delivery. And she's not going to let you get away with anything, kind of, She's very, direct that way. And then I think Steven Pressfield is very feminine, in touch with his feminine side, in that he talks about angels and muses, and he's very receptive and open and encourages you to be very receptive and open. So it's not fair, really, to say this isn't a masculine versus feminine take on the same idea, but that's one way kind of to look at it. The War of Art it creates a character out of something called the resistance, which I like, because in naming that part of you that self-sabotages your best laid plans, in naming it the resistance with a capital R, this is also the book that he capitalizes creativity. So it's like creativity versus resistance. Naming it resistance allows you to kind of distance yourself from it in a way and see it as its own character. So you can kind of divorce yourself from the shame of resistance. and not beat up on yourself, which is a form of resistance. Resistance is very tricky like that. So if it gets you in a shame spiral, it's kicking your butt. It's winning. It's winning because the resistance is creating shame, and the shame spiral is creating more resistance because it's keeping you busy with the shame, and you're not getting whatever done. You're not getting done the work that you're supposed to be getting done, or the creative thing that you're trying to create. Like, you're too busy in the shame cycle to get moving. So I love that he calls it the resistance. Also, because the book is framed as the war of art, that's kind of why I think of it as being very masculine, just in that way. It's about battling the resistance. And then Elizabeth Gilbert's approach in Big Magic is she just refers to the resistance as fear, just straight up fear. And her approach is more like make friends with the fear. Recognize that the fear is there. Fear gets to come along for the ride, but it doesn't get to drive. You drive, fear's in the back seat, and it doesn't get to have a say. It doesn't get to be an annoying backseat driver. So I just think both of these books are so fantastic, and I'm really not trying to recommend one over the other. I've just done 2 Elizabeth Gilbert posts already, book nerd posts. I did one for Eat, Pray, Love. I did one for her novel, The Signature of All Things, which is proof enough that Elizabeth Gilbert can move through resistance, because that book is this fat. It is epic. And I would say of both of these authors, they are both extraordinarily prolific, and I think it's really important that if you're going to learn something from someone, make sure they actually walk their talk and that they know what they're talking about. Both of these authors do. If you've never heard of Stephen Pressfield before, but you've seen the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance, you know his work. He wrote that novel, and I think he wrote like 10 or 12 novels before that novel was actually swept up into the public eye, at least. I don't know how long it took him to get published, but it took him a while. So he knows a lot about resistance. He knows a lot about persistence, and he's very, very prolific. They both are. So that's why I think too, these are excellent people to take advice from in this one regard of moving through resistance or moving through fear. So if you want to check out that book nerd post, it's down below. And until we meet again, may you be strong in the face of resistance. May you befriend your fear and let it go along with you. May you not get locked into a cycle of shame. Don't let the shame cycle you. Don't let that happen. And until we meet again, much love to you. Peace.